Who do you have at the top of the MVP?
We talked about him. It's Nikola Jokic. I think this is Jokic's award to lose, Brendon. I think he has been the best player in the league this year. This would have, frankly, probably been Embiid if Embiid was going to be eligible,
take
but
away
he's not.
Probably.
Jokic
Embiid
is
would
the
have won
leader.
this award if he stayed healthy.
Yeah, monster season that he was having. Jokic is, last time I looked, plus 22 per 100 possessions with him on the floor. That is easily the best figure in the league for players of a certain minutes total. He's not been quite as good with true shooting as of last year, but he's still just kind of controlling the entire game. He's still the most clear way to an elite offense in the league based on one single player. The statistical case is there. The Nuggets are really, really good. Very well could win the title again. I just think that guy is the best player in the NBA right now. I think it's him. And I think there are other guys you can make cases for. I have a list of 3 other guys that I would say I have in like my inner circle. Really 2 in the inner circle, 1 guy right kind of in between, and then a 4th guy who I think could get there with a late season surge. But to me, this is Jokic's award to lose.
Yeah, it's funny. You mentioned something that I was having to fight against myself, building out what the case for, or, I mean, there's not much of a case against him, but it's the versus last year kind of ideas or the versus previous seasons. It's like, well, that doesn't really matter for winning the MVP this year, right? But it is kind of tempting with a guy that is so great, and that's where he is. Like, you almost find yourself picking nits or comparing and contrasting because he's just at the pinnacle, the prime of a legendary all-time type of career. And it's funny to me how quickly the conversation has changed, where last year it felt like everyone was finding as many reasons as possible to not give it to him. And now we've circled back to like, it's just staring us in the face, and it feels like anything you say to take credit away from him just feels kind of silly. Like, he just did that in one fell swoop with what he did in the postseason last year. And so I tend to agree with you. He is he has minus odds to win it at BetMGM. No one else is really even sniffing his odds. And it feels like a year where, for better or worse, with the Embiid injury, with parity from top to bottom everywhere, and with the Celtics not having a great candidate, as we talked about with Tatum on Tuesday's show, that who's the best guy in the league is kind of just going to be where I think a lot of voters go. And it's Jokic. We know that.
Yeah, look, he won the title last year. I think that kind of validated him. Maybe I'm missing something just because I'm not using certain social media platforms as much as I was, and kind of avoid some of the nonsense, Brendon. But I don't feel like we've gotten like the Jokic outrage thing we got all of last year ever since he won the title. Like, I feel like that has just kind of made him bulletproof in a lot of ways. Like, maybe that changes, but I don't
that
hear
might have
the...
been there if Embiid stayed healthy, right? I know. I think Embiid would have had it with a bullet, but I can bet you, judging from, with all due respect and love and peace to all of them, how annoying Nuggets fans can be, that there would have been some vitriol. But now it just feels like, who are you really going to pick? Like, I think that's, to me, maybe where we can take this. Who did you have second? Do we have the same person? Okay, so
Shai.
I did not have Shai.
Oh, that's right. You're Chris Middleton.
Chris Middleton's first. I mean, we always preface every MVP conversation with that he is at the top. But I actually had his teammates second. In all actuality here.
Well, okay, I just want to... If people are tuning in for the first time and are wondering
we don't
why
need to
I'm
explain
giving Brendon
this.
shit about Chris Middleton...
It's just an in-joke of the show now. It's fine.
Okay.
Brad Rowland knows. Anyone who
Okay,
listened to that
that's
episode knows, and that's what it is. I'll check Chris Middleton's on-off real quick as we're going here and see if the king still has his crown. But I have Giannis second.
So I think that's a really good case. I'll tell you, I think he's third for me. Do you have Shai third?
Yeah, I do, and I just, like, it's weird, and it just is because I'm a nerd about this stuff and, like, care about talking about it But the thing I'm most passionate about within this whole MVP conversation is that Shai is not the MVP. And that's like a very asshole move by me. It's not like I really am trying to knock him down a peg. I mean, I think we did a show with Wes Goldberg a while back where I was just like literally writing a fucking poem to the dude on the show. I love Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I just don't think he's the MVP. So I think if he were to win it, that would be maybe the biggest shock of anybody to me personally, or the biggest. I guess I would just disagree with it most strongly of any of the top 4 guys, really. I don't think when we talk about what value really is, I have a hard time looking at what Shai is as a player, what the Thunder have been as a team, and what his season has looked like, and saying that's the most valuable thing in the league is having Shai on the court for you. You can talk me out of it if you feel differently, but I think we're just kind of basing it off of stats maybe a little bit too much with that guy and some clutch stuff, if I'm being honest.
Look, I mean, I'm not going to lie. That's kind of the crux of my argument. So if you want to critique that, I think that's fair. I just think that guy on a team that good, for how important he is to that team and how that team all year had just been consistent and winning, and he's the driver of so much of that, in addition to J-Dub and Mark Daigneault is doing a great job at that team and everything else you could say about the Thunder, Chet. I think Shai is just ultimately the real one who is at the crux of everything they are doing. So to me, I want to reward that. I want to reward a guy who has helped that team ascend in a real way, has been at the forefront of that, I think is just one of the best players in the league now. Maybe he's a little more like Tatum-y in some ways in terms of his candidacy than I'm maybe acknowledging here. I think that's kind of interesting comp of why you would have him and not Tatum, is just from the similarity of the arguments, I think. But I just want to reward him for being as good as he has. But I mean, Giannis to me is a very close third because he has been unbelievable despite the Bucks being kind of a mess at times.
Well, here's where I would go. I mean, I think to comp Shai to Tatum, his playmaking is a lot better. And I think that the reliability and consistency and, the fact that it does roll over into the clutch more naturally of his go-to scoring ability just puts him at another level.
Because he has that old school interior pull-up mid-range game and the footwork there, while Tatum is so dependent on, I mean, Brendon, honestly, I don't know how much flack he got for this from people, but Jason Tatum had a chance to beat the Cavs the other night and kind of stamp that game out, and he ended up doing something very silly, which is he kicked his foot out on a very wild pull-up when he didn't need to do it. And I could guarantee you in that same spot, if it's Shai in that spot and he needs to ice the game, I don't think Shai is fading away. He's going to go up with a confident, composed mid-range pull-up shot to win a game. Tatum just doesn't do something.
Yeah, Tatum had 3 plays down the stretch of that Cavs game. He passed it back on a drive, I think, to Porzingis when he had a wing between him and the basket. Took a really long catch-and-shoot 3 when there was an open lane to the basket attacking a closeout, and then had that last one. So, yeah, I mean, I just think with Shai, that's what, to me, clearly puts him above. He gets to the rim a ton. He gets to the free throw line a ton. He just has a control. He kind of has the game on a string in a way that you never really would say Tatum does. I think the best case for Shai to me is that. It's the level of control that I think he plays with, and patience and deliberation. I compared him to Kawhi when we were originally singing his praises when it became clear the type of season that he was having, and I stand by that. I guess where I would go, and the reason I have Giannis above is, one, I think Giannis, even though the defensive effort and impact is maybe less consistent than it used to be back when he was a perennial defensive player of the year candidate, it still has a higher ceiling just because of how big he is and everything else than it does for Shai. And offensively, I mean, with Shai on the court this year, the Thunder have a 123.2 offensive rating. With Giannis on the court, the Bucks have a 122.9 offensive rating. So it's really not that different. And their individual numbers are comparable. So I just sort of take all of that into consideration and the fact that the Bucks have been so broken for most of the year, and Giannis has been able to rise above that, and I just kind of give him the credit. I mean, he's shooting 62% from the field, averaging a career-high 6.3 assists without his turnovers going up much, and just putting this team on his back and finally making a run post-All-Star break to actually have the kind of standings and the record back up his individual performance. So that's my case, but I think it's going to be Jokic and then these two guys and Luka in some order behind that. I kind of think we have it set in stone.
Bucks Celtics is coming up soon. If Giannis has a big game in that game and the Bucks beat Boston, I think you're going to have some juice behind Giannis in a real way for this down the stretch. I think that's very, very possible. I don't think this is, as much as like we have just gone to defaulted to Jokic, Brendon, I do not think this is fully solidified as of yet. I think there's still time for something weird to happen here.